right in the kisser.
Hey, how the devil are you? Right, so today we have this. This is the new Aiyima DAC A7. The new DAC // headphone amp. And I have to say, so far, I'm pretty impressed. There are a few niggles which I'll go through during the video. So you'll have to keep watching to find out. Reel you in. You know it. Anyway, let's bring you in for a closer look. And here it is. Right. It's pretty small. It's not as small as, say, an SU1. It's probably double the size of that, but it's smaller than the usual thing you get. You can see my hand on the top there, how small it is, but the size of my hand, a little bit smaller than my hand. I do like the colour. I really like the colour. It's like a silvery, it's almost gunmetal, probably a bit lighter than gunmetal, but gunmetal grey, but it's got that sort of gunmetal grey look, but a little bit more silvery. I do like the colour. Only problem is that it might not match with some of the other stuff, if you've got other stuff to go with it, that is, okay. So let's start from the left. I had to think what left and right was then. I completely forgot. I need to put L and R on my hands. So we got 6.5mm and 6.35 I should say, 6.35 and 3.5mm headphone out, and that's unbalanced, that is single-ended. Got the volume pot here, I'll come back to that in a second. There's your inputs there, tells you what input you're on. Okay, on-off button here, and you can switch between line out or headphone out. It's on headphone at the moment, so it's banging on. So it should pop on now. There you go. Now, the first gripe I have with it, it's only a minor gripe, some may consider it more of a minor gripe, is the volume, okay. So there's no way to tell where the volume's at unless it's at full or minimum. So either maximum or minimum. So what happens is when you turn it all the way up, keep an eye on this light on the end here. There we are. Now I know I'm at maximum. Okay, I'm at maximum volume. If I turn it the other way, keep an eye on that light. There you go, I'm at minimum now. But in between, you've no idea where the volume is set. Why, Yoda? I'm not a fan of that. I would have liked just a standard volume pot with minimum, maximum, and a line on it which goes maximum, minimum. Just a simple, don't overcomplicate it. Fozzy Audio made the same error with the ZP3, and they didn't even have on that the indicator to tell you you were at maximum or minimum. Just stick to a normal volume pot. I like to know where the volume is at when I'm looking at it. I don't want to have to guess. One thing it does have is volume memory. So it has two modes, unified and independent, and when you set it to independent, it will memorize what the volume is at for each input. So for instance, I'm on USB now, and if I press it again, watch the end light, see, so now I'm on independent. So now it will memorize what the volume is set at for USB, and to take it off, I just press that and it'll go off. So when you go back to it, you won't get a sudden volume increase. It'll still memorize the volume it was before, but I still would have liked to have seen just a standard volume pot to know where it's at. A way around it is quite simple, really. If you're using it as a preamp, you can just set the volume to max on this. You know when it's at max when it lights up on there, and use whatever amplifier. So if I had it connected to an amplifier, I would just use the volume on the amplifier and I'd leave this volume alone. Or alternatively, you can set the volume to max on here and use the volume on your PC to control it. So I can turn the volume up and down on the source device. So you've got two options there. So you don't have to bother using this volume pot, but there we are. Anyway, so that's the front, but I tell you what, we really need to look around the back. Okay, on the back, starting from the left again. I got my left and right correct this time. So on the left we have Bluetooth aerial. I'll talk more about the Bluetooth and the codecs later in the video. We've got, it is Bluetooth 5.4 by the way. USB-C in, optical, coaxial and RCA single-ended out. And then you've got USB-C input, power input there. Notice it doesn't have RCA in, so you can only really connect digital sources to it. And about the power supply, so you notice they got the power supply and the USB input separate. Because a lot of DACs under 100 quid, they tend to have the USB double as the input as well. It is convenient. However, having them separate does have its benefits because it can limit interference. So it is good to see them separated. However, I think to keep the price down on it, you do have to provide your own power plug. It's recommended for 5 volt, so most of us have a phone charger lying around somewhere we can use to plug it in. But it doesn't come with that in the box, so you've got to provide it yourself. Now, talking about the plug, all it says in the manual is it needs a 5 volt. So I'm assuming it's a 5 volt 1 amp. However, sometimes it's not good to make assumptions. So I would recommend using a 5 volt 2 amp or a 5 volt 3 amp. The reason being is if you use a 5 volt 3 amp and it only needs 1 amp, the DAC will only pull how many amps it needs and it won't do nothing to the DAC. However, if it requires 2 amps and you only put a 1 amp in, then it could damage the DAC because it's trying to draw too much power and can overheat the plug. So I'd recommend getting a 5 volt 2 amp or a 5 volt 3 amp. I'm going to use a 5 volt 3 amp for this, so there's going to be no problems there. There's just something else I did want to mention, so I'll just flip it around to the front again. I won't do stop motion this time, let's make it quick. Okay. If you notice, there's no way to tell your sample rate. I think though it's because it's all 24-bit 192. There is no different sample rates. So maybe that's why it is, but there's no way to tell if it got 44.1 or 96 or whatever. There's no way to tell. So something for you to be aware of. It also comes with a USB-C cable. Just see if you can see it there. USB-C to USB-C, and it's got a USB-A adapter which can go on there like that. Hang on a minute, I'll get it on there. Yoink, there you go. Okay, and it has in the box an optical cable as well, digital cable there. Subscribe to UTV. Any spare subs, Governor? Spare some subs for a poorly YouTuber.
Get a real job.
I think the obvious choice now is to compare it to the Fosi Audio ZH3. So let's have a look at their matchup spec-wise. Okay, let's compare the two together. So the Fosi ZH3 is using the XU316 XMOS, that's for the USB input. Don't know what the DAC A7 is, so they're not using an XMOS, obviously, otherwise they would say it. DAC chip, ZH3 is using the AKM4493 SEQ, nice DAC chip there. And the DAC A7 is using the ESS 9038 Q2M. Again, not a bad DAC chip that, it's alright. The DAC A7 is using a Bluetooth chip, Qualcomm Bluetooth chip, that's a QCC3084, and they're both using the OPA 1612 op amps ×4. Inputs, ZH3's got coaxial, optical, USB and RCA. The DAC A7 has got coaxial, optical, USB and Bluetooth, doesn't have RCA inputs, but the ZH3 doesn't have Bluetooth. Outputs, you've got the balance 4.4mm, 6.35mm on the ZH3, RCA XLR. On the DAC A7 you've got 3.5 and 6.35 single-ended and an RCA output. So headphone impedance, ZH3 quotes 16 to 300 ohms. And the DAC A7 quotes up to 600 ohms. I don't know whether that you could get up to 600 ohms in the DAC A7. Potentially, maybe. I don't know. I think 16 to 300 is a more optimistic range. Max sampling rates. So obviously the ZH3 doesn't have Bluetooth, but the USB PCM goes up to 32-bit 768 kilohertz, and it also has DSD 512. Whereas the DAC A7, the USB is only PCM 24-bit 192, and obviously optical and coax are the same. Now, would you hear a difference between 24-bit 192 and 32-bit 768 PCM? I doubt it very much. DSD 512 potentially, yeah. And obviously then you got this is the LDAC quote in here. The Bluetooth is 24-bit 96 kilohertz. That is using the LDAC. And then you got the 4.4 balanced. Obviously the DAC A7 doesn't have balanced outputs. So you can read that for yourself. But what I want to compare is the single-ended. So the ZH3 is using a 6.35 and the DAC A7 is using 6.35 and 3.5 mil. So 640 milliwatts times 2 with the ZH3 at 32 ohms. And the DAC A7, now on the web page and in the literature, it says 1500 milliwatts, nothing else. Doesn't say times 2 or times 1 or nothing. Normally it's times 2. They put the 1500 milliwatts to make it look a bit more. I reckon, I could be wrong, but it's just got 1500 milliwatts, nothing else. So I'm assuming that's per channel. So 750 milliwatts times 2. It's still decent power. You're going to power pretty much most headphones with that, unless you've got some really hard to drive headphones. You should be okay. Signal to noise ratio, dynamic range, 121 dB versus 120. You're not going to hear much of a difference between those two. And total harmonic distortion, 00024, 0.0003. Again, you're not going to hear a difference between those two. Bluetooth audio codecs, ZH3 doesn't have Bluetooth. DAC A7 has LDAC, aptX HD, AAC, SBC. And obviously the ZH3 has an LCD display, it has filters and a bass and treble. Now, here's the crazy thing though, look at the difference in price. So you're paying for that premium of the ZH3. It's got a lot of extras on it, I appreciate that, and it's balanced. But it's double the price of the DAC A7. So a very reasonably priced DAC stroke headphone amp from Aiyima. So there's the specs. So now, how do they sound compared to each other? Well, there's only one thing for it, isn't there? A sound test. A sound test. A sound test. So what I've done is gone out of the headphone sockets, because they are headphone amps as well as DACs. Obviously, the ZH3 has a 4.4mm balanced out. To make it a fair comparison, I've gone out of the unbalanced 6.35mm output on the Fozzy and the 3.5mm from the DAC A7 into an audio capture device, recorded it onto Audacity and saved it as a WAV file to get the best representation possible. So, without me blabbing on any further, have a listen to this. And there you go. What do you think? I'd have to give it to the Fozzy, but only by a nose, okay? There wasn't a lot in it, but I do think the Fozzy just sounded a little bit cleaner, a little bit more musical. When I was listening to it, I felt that about halfway through a snare drum comes in, and I thought that was a little bit, it sounded a little bit sweeter, had a bit more impact, and it lingered a bit longer. I'm only talking fractions of a second here, but I just thought the Fozzy Audio ZH3 pipped it. But it was very close. It wasn't much between it. And considering the difference in price, generally, I know you're getting a lot more on the Fozzy, but sound-wise, you know, it held its own against the Fozzy, and the Fozzy just pipped it. So there you go. There you go. I think it's a cracking little headphone amplifier for under 100 quid. I don't think there's anything about in that price range that can match it. Not to my knowledge. If you can think of anything, let me know in the comment section. Anyway, that's come to the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.